Okay, hey, welcome to the Liverpool Black Men's Group podcast. We seem to have a lot of great interest from our podcast last week, where we were talking about Christianity, or is Christianity a white man's religion? I believe our brother Adi Inka was talking about, and people felt it was too short. So we figured we're going to do a part two. And so, first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Chase Johnson Lynch, and to my right is
James the Boat.
And then we have our other brothers.
Adiyinka Olushonde.
And Errol Graham.
Okay, so, I mean, pretty much, brothers, is that, it's kind of hard to pick up the conversation, but we started talking before we started and everything, and I figured we should probably pick up on that conversation because it kind of got a little bit heated.
Yeah.
In an interesting way, and everything. And but one of the things I thought that we were talking about, your comment or your statement about is Christianity, a white man's religion, or something like that. So then, so from there, if you could just pick up that statement again, and basically we went right to you, Errol, because you were talking about your Ethiopian faith and about the discovery there. So if we could start with you there, Adi, we could go there.
Okay, yeah, well, thank you. I mean, again, to pick up, if I can, without trying to repeat last week's podcast, I think the heart behind it, as a quick whistle-stop talk, was because I've gone lots of places around the world and had conversations with people about my faith. I'm also an ordinand, which means I'm training to be a Church of England vicar, so I'll have a dog collar on in a few years' time. And for many people, seeing a black man with one of those on seems like anathema, seems like it doesn't fit. And that's because I believe, and this is why I wanted my conscious brothers to join me in this conversation, I believe that there's been a misrepresentation of Christianity and the roots of Christianity, not just because, we see, we mentioned Charlton Heston and white people playing in movies, characters from biblical times that were obviously not white, misrepresenting, but yet those things seep into culture. They seep not just into the older movies, but also into like iconography that we see in different churches. We see it in the stories and the values that are then passed down. I was talking to my brother just before how yesterday I did a presentation in Chester University about the house that Blood built, talking about the impact of slavery and I don't want to go down the negative side, but one of the reasons why that was possible is because people were constantly fed a negative view on Africa and disconnected the African black roots and narrative from the Christianity that has taken root and has spread throughout the world, and specifically the Western world. So that's where I wanted to start with. So if you want to go to someone else.
Well, that's where I want to cut to you there, Errol, because where you only got to tell us about, your Ethiopian faith and where your name came from and everything, but also the major mic drop was that the Ark of the Covenant ended up in Ethiopia. Yeah. So please tell us about that story, brother.
Okay, well, basically, that's why we're saying, if we even look at the Old Testament, the Bible, in Genesis chapter 2, the first known physical country is Ethiopia. When the Bible speaks about the Garden of Eden, the first known country, it says one of the rivers that went out to water the garden was named the Gihon, which compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. So it's the first recognizable place. Then you have other references like King David saying, "Princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall stretch forth their hands unto God." So this is where we get this narrative now within the Ethiopian church about the Ark of the Covenant and so on and so forth. We, in the book of Leviticus, Moses marries an Ethiopian woman.
No.
Yes, we hear a complaint from his brother Aaron and his sister Miriam that he had married an Ethiopian woman. So that connection with Ethiopia is in the Bible. the story says that we all know of the Queen of Sheba. But this is when you was talking about before. When we speak of these places, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Sheba, where are they? You know, and because people don't have a good geography.
Africa.
Yeah, they're in Africa. Sheba is an ancient province of Ethiopia. So that queen, who we now know her name was Makeda, traveled, as the Bible says in the book of Kings, to test the wisdom of King Solomon. In other words, to investigate how wise was this king. According to the Bible says Solomon was a lover of women. So when he seen the Queen of Sheba, he seen her beauty. They fell in love. They had a child. They got married. They had a child. This child became the first king of Ethiopia when his mother traveled back to Ethiopia. When that child became of age, he went to Jerusalem to visit his father, who was King Solomon. His name was Menelik I.
Oh, yeah, Menelik, yeah.
You've heard of Menelik I,
Yeah.
Son of the wise. So he travels back to Jerusalem to visit his father. His father wants him to stay in Jerusalem and become the next king. He says, no, I'm loyal to my mother and I want to go back to Ethiopia. So what Solomon says, okay, I'm going to send because he's Solomon's firstborn son. Solomon says that he's going to send all the firstborn of Israel back with his firstborn son to establish another kingdom to be allied with Israel and Ethiopia. A plan was devised because most of the firstborns didn't want to leave the Ark of the Covenant, because we know this Ark used in battle. You know, there's so many things that took down the walls of Jericho and all of these type things.
Also carried the Ten Commandments.
It carried the Ten Commandments, Let's be clear of what the Ark of the Covenant is. It's the Ten Commandments written by the fingers of God, given to Moses on Mount Sinai,
and
put into this
staff
gold
as well was
chest,
in there.
and so on. So the firstborns of Israel didn't want to leave the Ark. So it says that a plan was devised with the high priest, Zadok, and his son. They made a replica of the Ark and stolen the true Ark and carried it back to Ethiopia, where it's been ever since. That's why we have all these things like Raiders of the Lost Ark, because people say it's lost. But if you go to Ethiopia,
It's where it's supposed to be.
It's part of the everyday normal fabric of the culture. Every Ethiopian church is not a consecrated church unless it has a replica of the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant rests in a place called Aksum, which is the ancient city of Sheba, where the Queen of Sheba came from, and in a church called St. Mary of Zion. And that's where the true Ark is believed to be to this very day.
Well, listen, let me ask you this question before I move on. Is that like Queen of Sheba, Cleopatra, Nefertiti, right? Considered to be, beautiful women of Egypt. What skin tone were they? Because as it's drawn on statues or monuments, whatever, or we are led to believe that they were actually white. So
King Solomon.
Help me out, brother.
If we read in the book of the Songs of Solomon, which is after the book of Psalms, the Queen of Sheba explains who she is. She called a Shumalite woman, and she says, "Look upon me not because I am black. I am black but comely." Different translations may say I'm black but humble. I am black and beautiful. It depends on the translator, but they all see that she was a black woman.
And a lot of the rulers actually of Africa of that time. I mean, we're Liverpool Black Men's Group, but I think it's important to big up my sisters, because a lot of the greatest queens in earlier eras greatest rulers were queens, were female, black women, strong black women.
So not Elizabeth Taylor. Okay, so anyway, my brother James, I know you've been sitting there like quietly and everything like that, and I know that in our last podcast, you wanted to speak a little bit more about spirituality, and it's not like spirituality versus Christianity, but, I think we have a right for everyone to be able to speak, and I wanted to give you your time about what your thoughts were around spirituality and everything. and your beliefs?
Well, like I said last time, I see it as the beginning. Now, when we say beginning, we can say two beginnings, the physical and the spiritual. So whichever beginning you want to do, obviously it's the spiritual. So coming on this earth, what we call planet Earth, first people, of course, Africa and Ethiopia, just like Errol says when it mentions about the Garden of Eden. Science, it actually matches that as well. So not to go into science, I'm just finding connections.
Yeah.
So people would be spiritual from the environment that they're living in. Whether you could be in the rainforest, you could be spiritual anywhere. It's not a particular place. But if you want to deal with natural things, like example, the Maasai tribes who I visit with, they explain that they pray on a mountain because it's a sacred mountain, not just any mountain. It's a sacred mountain. So it's down to your environment. How far do you want to go with spirituality? I mean, you can just like make mad noises. You can put your hands together. But it's about the practice. It's about practices. This is when, so now not off the topic. So when we're dealing with like Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, anything, right, with any of them religions or philosophies, then we're dealing with something that came out of Africa. Now, you're always going to get the purest version in Africa. You will always get that, the purest version from the beginning. Now, as far as practices, the important thing about practices, and I'm just going to give an example now, with the Orthodox Christianity, particularly speaking to Errol, we go back and forth and that all the time. And that. So what I said to Errol is that what I am acknowledging, it's not about the word Christianity. Anyone could use words. Words don't mean nothing unless actions come out of them. So the practices, what I am enlightened by with the Orthodox Christianity, is how many times a year he does fasting. I mean, if I can remember the figure you said, was it 175 days a year?
It's about something like that.
Okay.
We fast every Wednesday and Friday automatically.
Yeah.
Then we have the Great Fast for Easter, which is 55 days. And then we have a similar fast for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then there's different saint fasts.
Yeah.
So, when we put them all together, for the laity, it's about 170 odd days.
Also the vegan.
Yeah. And we become completely vegan at that time.
Now, just that alone, just looking at that, for me, that's already spiritual. Also, as well, example, I was saying before to Errol, like when people grow, say if you imagine a large field in Africa, I'm just using Africa for the example, and people are growing crops. Yeah. There has to be a time you have to let this land rest. You can't just keep doing crops. You have to let an area rest. It's a spiritual thing. It's an understanding. It's a consciousness, and it's all connected. So later on, when we get religion, I think what the negative thing about it is when people say, for example, organized religions. Yeah. So when I say organized religions, I mean, you could go and find a little tribe that's practicing religion or spirituality, and they just mind their own business. They're not trying to impose it on this, if you want to come along with them. So when I go meet a tribe, for example, I'll meet the Eta, the Philippines, they tell me, also already, that they believe in a supreme being. Yeah. Now, some people might try to say, well, that's wrong what they believe. But I think what it more or less is over time, that people did believe in a supreme being or the God or the creator from the beginning. Now, but a lot of things get like twisted, you see. There's a lot of twists to all this words and that. But speaking to Errol a lot, going back to what I was saying anyway, is I'm more concentrating on the practices. Because I can be negative and say, oh, I don't believe Christianity. But I'm more opening my mind up where I'm looking at, that looks excellent, that what you're doing. This practice looks amazing. Now, when I say westernized Christianity, I'm looking at spirituality a little subtracted, but I'm not trying to go into that,
Yeah, well, let me again, I like to consider this more of a discourse than a debate. But you opened me up to a thought, and I don't know what Addie's going to think about this, so that's why it's interesting. Cool. But no. But you said that most of these people, or tribes, or people went back to a supreme being.
Yeah.
But actually, it is thought of. Now, again, I'm always playing the ugly American, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It is thought of that monotheism came about through the guy
Akhenaten.
Akhenaten. Okay. Hold on. What I'm trying to say is before Akhenaten brought about monotheism, it was polytheism. So wait.
Okay.
It wasn't just Africans and Egyptians who believed in polytheism.
Egypt's in Africa, and also. all right. So let me say because we had this discussion
I was
before.
going to just say that all other cultures believed in polytheism as well. But go ahead,
okay,
bro.
Akhenaten,
Trying to make me look foolish.
No. Apologize, brother. No, Akhenaten, he was bringing something back.
Yeah.
So what was he bringing back? Something that had to exist. So I'm going to go into when the two lands were separate, when they called Nubia and obviously Egypt.
Well, hit me, brother. You know.
Okay. So 3100 BC, this is according to particular people like Chancellor Williams and many other scholars, yeah? So 3100 BC, the lands are separated. Nam is going to come from the south and take it back. Now, what he's doing, he's conquering as a conquest, but he's taking something back, like slapping your little brother back into place. It wasn't like a personal thing, because what's happened is on the borders of Ethiopia, 3100 BC, about maybe 1 in a 4th was becoming Eurasian on the borders, because this is where the trade's coming through. People wanted, Eurasians, they've always been coming in to attack, or there's times when they just traded, and then there's times when they come for war. Then there's them where people have peace treaties. But this is a repeated thing. So when we're going before 3100 BC, before the people coming on the borders, bringing in their occult religions, because Egypt was influenced by people coming outside, but it was originally, they come from the south in Egypt, of the Nubia and Sudan and Ethiopia and that. So with the influence from the outside, from Asia and Europe, they brought in what they know. So even though they took from us, but they tried to give something to us back in the watered down version, which suits their needs. So that's why Nam has had to conquer it back. But the only problem is when you conquer it back, do you take back what you had in the beginning, or does it start to filter down? I would say it starts to filter down.
Yeah.
Because it could never be what it once was. I mean, Dr. Ben, he touches really, he mentions about Uganda. This is where he says it begins at the bottom of the Nile, Uganda, the civilization that comes up. And you can look at many different African countries. They do believe in a God, but it's not, it's like the Yoruba. You might hear them shouting Shango, Oya, Ogun, but they were not confused who the supreme being was. These are aspects of the supreme being, and everything in creation, everything is through the creator, and we as human beings are a part of that.
Yeah.
We are a part of that.
But what's important is that, before I go to Eddie, is that these cultures who had the polytheistic gods, they all were the same as in the other cultures. They just had their own names for them.
That's right.
So this is where you get like Muhammad and all these other kind of things, where it's like everything is still based upon that, as you just said, the one source and everything else. But it's because that culture called it a different name that you got all these different.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it.
That's but right. I just wanted to make that clear and everything. So, Addy, what do you think about monotheism versus polytheism, or do you think it was just something at the time?
I think. I'm going to do what you did yesterday on your webinar. I'm going to take it somewhere slightly different, but also come back to it.
Yeah.
I think where you started, James, I think was interesting, because you were talking about early man's engagement with the land and expression of spirituality in relation to their relationship with the land, and those, the term being chthonic, those chthonic practices are extant, as in still around and connected within the Christianity, ancient and even modern Christianity, and because the ancient Christianity from the first fathers, the New Testament, for example, is simply a running commentary on the Old Testament. That's pretty much all it is. And Jesus is seen in Christianity as the fulfillment of all of the old prophecies that have been foretold about the anointed one, the Messiah, that would come, and in many ways as well, the religion of Judaism, as reflected in Christianity, also reflects that which came before it, doesn't mean that they're necessarily saying the same, but it's almost like a running commentary. Just like the New Testament doesn't say exactly the same things as the Old Testament. It's like the religion of Judaism and Christianity. It reflects and almost like refracts, almost like a prism where the light goes in and it spreads out so that you actually can see more of what the light is. It's not just white, but it's like all these other things. And in that way, I would say that it's almost like a fulfillment, in a sense, of a lot of the knowledge and understanding that man had at a time when, from my Christian belief, God, there was natural revelation, but then there was a moment, and that's talked about and chronicled through the Tanakh, through the Old Testament, where God revealed himself and spoke of himself. And that's what we talked about in the last podcast, saying, I am what I am.
Yeah.
I am that I am. I am what I will be. God revealed himself to man and spoke and said, well, okay, this is what you've been thinking about me. And you all know that I'm here. There's enough of you that know in different parts of this world that I've created, that you know that there is someone and something. It's almost like they've, in a sense, the analogy that I have is that there are different powers and different principalities, and it's almost like each one of those is like an umbrella, right? And if you put up an umbrella, you're under that power and you're under that principality. Now, if you walk inside a room, like a big room, and you put up the umbrella, you're still under the umbrella, but you're actually under a bigger roof.
Okay.
You're under a higher authority. That doesn't necessarily destroy or detract from what the umbrella represents, was, but it's like taking it to the next stage to say, do you know what? Now that you know and you've got an experience of the truth that there is a God, now come and, understand who I, as God, will self-reveal to me. Not what you think. It's not what you may have experienced as the most powerful thing. And it's almost like a scientific revelation in a sense as well, because science moves people's understanding of tides and of lunar cycles and all sorts of things. There are revelations that move and move and move and move.
Yeah, obviously.
But yet the self-revelation of God is eternal, because it was from the beginning, is now, and is going on into the future. And for me, and that's one of the other things I want to also connect with, being not just a white man's religious perspective. It's a universal, self-revelatory, universal fulfillment of what God self-reveals himself to be. Sorry, I went.
No, I was just waiting for you to finish. I was going to say to bring me in, because it's like what James you asked the question originally. Mm-hmm. Did Akhenaten bring back the concept of one God? And what James really answered is that he was bringing something back. So he wasn't the first to claim there was a one God.
Yeah.
You didn't pick up on what James really, how we answered the question.
It's just that, through my history, that's what I learned.
I'm just so
you're saying
the
before
audience
him
can understand, because he did go on to a lot of other things. But I think the crucial point is that he said that Akhenaten was bringing something back.
Yeah.
Which originally they did believe in the one deity.
Yes.
So, and I think even anthropology is saying now that polytheism is not the first religion.
Yes.
The belief in one God is the first religion. Then polytheism comes after, when people start to spread out and lose memory.
It's so like there's got to,
because it's like what you were saying about the Nicene Creed before, when people say, "Oh, it was invented in Nicaea." No, it was all as in the idea.
Well, we don't know nothing about prehistory, because it's all been washed away. So tell us then, Errol. Then what is your thoughts on monotheism versus polytheism?
I think one of the greatest fortunate example that you can use is that in every culture in this world, there's a flood story.
Exactly. I was alluding to that.
Every single culture in this world, there's a story of a flood.
Exactly.
And to use two as an example, we have in the Bible the story of Noah. 8 people saved in that flood. In China, the number 8 is used as a new beginning very sacred
or,
number
or
in China.
the infinity symbol.
Yeah. And it's used as starting over again. You know, it's very symbolic in China, in their culture. So they're just two little examples. There's loads of different examples, and some of the stories sound ridiculous. Even the Noah story could sound ridiculous to people. How did he get all them animals in? And how did the ants get in the ark? And all kinds of things that people...
How did he build that boat?
And how did he build the ark? And I know, and people ask all these questions. But I just think, therefore, our understanding that something happened, something went wrong, something separated us from that one creator, and that's why we have all this diversity in the world that argues sometimes against each other and say, well, no, this is the true faith, or this is the... Do you know what I mean? But like Adienka says, that at one point in time as Christians, we believe that God revealed itself to us so that we could know what is these things that we've been all thinking about that comes into us naturally, because we say that man is created in the image and likeness of God. Therefore, his own conscience, the first law is the law of conscience. We all know, if there wasn't the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, we would just know by nature you shouldn't kill another human being.
Oh, no,
you don't have to write that down. You don't rob, don't bear false witness. All of these things come to us naturally. And when we start to practice these things and come away from what we should do, the conscience is the first thing to say, hey, stop looking at his wife. Hey, stop looking at his car. Stop envying your neighbor's house. Stop.
It's like you need someone above to tell you what is just a thing that you should naturally do anyway.
Well, you don't, because that's why I said the first law is the law of conscience. So we believe that came from above. God put that in us naturally. The way we even live our lives, we all live as if we're going to live forever. Remember, God is an eternal being without beginning and without end. Yeah. That's why we think we'll never die, because it's in us naturally to think we're going to live forever. And so we start to really tap into these revelations of God and realize that, well, okay, we do have a beginning and we're going to have an end. Yeah. And how do we live within that time span? Yeah.
You want to say the 42 negative confessions in Egypt. Now these are
42.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's more, but just let's talk about the 42. The laws are matter. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So now these laws, now there's been disputes of like, well, did they subtract these 10 laws from the 10 commandments? Did they subtract them from the 42 negative confessions? Possibly. Yeah. I'm not here to debate that. Yeah. Or maybe there's new laws that came through when laws are being needed, because different times, different laws that get needed at particular times. But what you just said before about the word prehistory, this is the problem why we're suffering from history going way back, because that word prehistory, Africans wouldn't use that. That's a European word where when he says prehistory, anything before 6,000 years or something is called prehistory. It's just history.
Well, it's just like the Dead Sea Scrolls, bro.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, some of these things that we're learning about, that we're talking about, is because they found these scrolls that they didn't have before.
But then going back to Ethiopia, what we've got to look up with Ethiopia, it's older than Egypt. If we want to deal with before Pharaonic times.
No, I know, but what was our way of recording this? I mean, you know, on papyrus or, you know, on rock and stone. I mean, there was no way of actually recording a lot of information.
A lot of oral history is probably one of the main keys. And oral history, sometimes it can be more reliable than documented history. Sometimes, sometimes because things can change. Science, for example, you know, they've spotted something new. So let's say the example, he said the oldest modern humans come from Ethiopia. Then the last 10, 15 years, he said they find fossils old in Morocco, 300,000 years ago. Now, where are they going to go to next? Maybe they're going to go to Nigeria. They're going to find something there. Oh, that's 500,000 years. Because personally, and I'm sure these agree with me, I don't believe man come from apes. I don't see God's power, or like, I believe in the creator. I don't see the point of the Almighty can do everything. You just make us human beings from the beginning. You don't need to make us come from apes, or we have a common ancestor, because that's just where it gets messed up. Because you start saying, well, I believe I do come from this, then you have to go on with the anthropology. And that's why one time the closest thing I was ever going to actually go to university to do was I was looking at one time to be an anthropologist. But then the schisms that come with that, I cannot talk about modern man being modern man and always being modern man, because anthropology doesn't allow you to do that. You know, so that's why I didn't go into that area. Also, I could have went into. I didn't go to university for the fact of to learn Black history. I had to just do that myself. I don't like rules where like it's. I'm not saying you can't go to. You could learn. It's good if you do both actually.
Yeah.
But you know, I like to try and search myself and just dig deep and connect spiritually to people anywhere on the planet, because I feel spirituality. It's like me and Edel. We could have a spiritual connection just sitting here without even saying a word.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Words don't mean. Words are just words.
No.
Actions and, you know, go on then.
No, I get you. So, Errol, I mean, you know, like, I mean, once again, we got to come to an end. But, like, I mean, I just feel like, you know, like, you've been listening to and fairly and everything. I just want to know, is there anything that you feel that, you know, you wanted to say or add to this podcast around these thoughts that we're talking about before we go into aliens? But, like, I'm just saying.
No, I just like to think that.
I thought to put that to rest, that alien book. Anyway,
No. I'm not going to start it, bro. Don't get me
okay.
started.
I thought me and Patrick last time we put that to bed, but
It's been a good topic in terms of going back to the original question.
Yeah.
Is Christianity a white man's religion?
Thank
What
you,
I would say is that it's a religion of mankind, because we were talking, me and James, on the way in here. There's two major religions that I wouldn't say they infringe on people's beliefs, but what they do is they evangelize. And them two religions would be Christianity and Islam. They're the only two major religions I find that they propagate their faith to others. Okay? I wouldn't say they're forcing it on people, but because they believe they have the message of salvation, therefore they want people to be saved under that message of salvation. So Islam is a propagating faith, so is Christianity. Other faiths, unless you seek them out, they'll remain where they are. Buddhism, Hinduism, Sikhism, they don't really evangelize the way Christianity and Islam do, you know? So like you explained it when we were talking off camera, for someone to suggest that Christianity is a white man's religion, well, it was in Ethiopia from the first days of its conception, and they don't seem to have a problem with it. It's also in India, where a lot of people don't know about the Indian Orthodox Church, which is a sister church to Ethiopia. These churches were established by the apostles themselves, the disciples. Ethiopia is known to being established by, we learned about the Ethiopian eunuch who was baptized by Philip, but they also have a tradition that says that Matthew also came to the country and evangelized the country. The apostle Mark evangelized Egypt. Egypt's called the Sea of St. Mark. And St. Thomas, which we know in the West, which people call Doubting Thomas, evangelized the church in India. And these are sister churches, also Armenia and Syria. These are the 5 what we call Oriental Orthodox churches. And it's through schisms and whatever, where they're not linked with the Greek and the Russian Orthodox and so on. But these are Orthodox churches who are sister churches. Now, within them 5 churches I've mentioned, you've got black, brown, and white to an extent, you know? And these don't find no problem because it's showing that the faith itself is a universal faith, you know? And I think maybe it's because of what's the narrative of the last 500 years in the West, which people might say, oh, well, they enslaved us, the Roman Catholics, the Church of England, this, that, and the other, and all these type of things, you know, so people want to just use that narrative and stay within that narrative and don't go outside of it. Yeah. You know, when they need to investigate what James is saying, what is the practice of Christianity? I give him a great example when we were coming here. In the dawning of the Second World War, Italy invaded Ethiopia. The Pope at Rome of the time blessed the guns of Mussolini to invade Ethiopia. They used mustard gas, all kinds of things that are outlawed by the First World War. And these are 2 Christian nations at war. Rome is clearly a Christian country, and so is Ethiopia. But what happened after the war? the Emperor Haile Selassie stunned the world with his statement. He said to the Ethiopian people, do not commit the atrocities that the enemy has committed on us and spoiled the great Christian name of Ethiopia. Do you know that many of the Italian soldiers didn't even go home after that war?
Wow.
They stayed in Ethiopia and married Ethiopian women. The emperor gave them homes and so on.
What year
and
was
showed, this is 1936 invasion up to 1941. Ethiopia is the first place liberated in the First World War when Britain became its allies because it was left to Ethiopia. So what me and our Patrick have that exhibition, The Age of Appeasement. But the emperor was showing them a true Christian value. This is how Christians should behave.
Yeah.
Do not take revenge on our enemy. Forgive them. And like I say, many of the Italians, they didn't even want to go back home to Italy. They stayed in Ethiopia. You know, so you have a little roots of Italian people that even people have Italian descent now. One of the prestige historians of Ethiopia, his grandfather was Italian. I can't remember his name right now. It kind of eluded me, but his grandfather was an Italian.
Yeah.
You know? So he was showing you that Christian value. This is the way of Christ, forgiveness. When he was on the cross, his words was, forgive them, Lord.
Yeah.
You know, forgiving the people who were persecuting him, not to take revenge. So this was, so people need to look at Christianity, like James has said, it's practice, not what is just the word. You know, find out what is the practice of Christianity and investigate that. And be holistic in where you investigate north, south, east, and west. Look at the countries of Christianity and see what is being the example and the true examples. So with that,
well, listen, I mean, once again, Brother Boulder, you know, eye-opening experience. And I mean, I think hopefully we can actually change maybe that question about whether Christianity is a white man's religion. Or is it an Ethiopian religion? Who knows? But like, my main thing about the learning process here is what these brothers have been able to share today, just in this small podcast, about Ethiopia, about Africa, about spirituality and Christianity, all in one and everything, and dispel certain myths that has been propagated by the media through the white tan Charlton Heston. But, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I think hopefully you've all got something out of this about how important it is to explore Africa, to learn more about Ethiopia, not just Ethiopia, but a lot of the other various places. And you can by following my man James DeBow on his Discovering podcast. Please look out for that. Look out for more of these Liverpool Black Men podcasts, because we're going to create a channel where we'll put them all on and be able to have access to our brothers who could share more knowledge by you asking more questions. So feel free to throw questions into the chat. That's what it's all about. When you watch this, I know you're amazed by it, you love it, but please ask questions in the chat, and the brothers will go on and try to answer them for you and everything else like that. But for now, you know, I just want to thank James DeBow.
Great to be back on Big Turned Online.
Exactly, giving up your time on this important day for you. Yeah. My other brother, Addy Inca.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks all my brothers for helping me work through this topic and dropping your knowledge, your experience, your questions and everything around it.
Share knowledge,
and I think we have managed to put that spectre to bed. Whether or not, I mean, it was a rhetorical question. I knew it wasn't, but I wanted to put it out there. And there's a lot around Christian spirituality. There's a lot around the history, and I think not just Christians ourselves, but also anybody and everybody. We should all be, in some ways, historians. In some ways, constant. I know you're big on this. We should always be lifelong learners. We should always be educating ourselves.
You're never too old to learn,
and allowing ourselves to learn more from each other, from around the world, and not just take the sound bites that Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever. Not just take the sound bites, but go a little bit deeper. And I hope that
there's been many attempts also, back to what we just quickly say, the attempt when they talk about akhenaten, attempt to bring something back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's supposed to be the same story as many of the other prophets attempt to try to bring something back because people are destroying things.
Yeah.
People are within power, isn't it? You know?
Either through forgetfulness
Why
or
do you think Buddhism came? An
Yeah.
attempt to bring something back because Hinduism went into a caste system and just went like the Aryans took over it. So
Yeah.
it was a caste system, color coded, you know. So
But that's all about, and that next time, if you give me another chance to do a different podcast, I'll talk about domination, and where that takes people and things, because that's what all that is about, isn't it? It's about one group of people wanting to have control of the resources of another human group of people, and that's what I say. That's why I say there's never ever been any war fought on religious lines. It hasn't. There's only ever been wars that have only ever been fought were for control of resources of one type or another. Now, organized religious beliefs and practices have been used as a shoe-in to get people to go and put the uniform on, grab a gun and go there. But in terms of the masterminding and the reason for it, the behind, that's always been about control. It's always been about domination.
Yeah. And then, Brother Arrow, I mean, thank you once again for your wisdom.
You've said so much that I don't know how to follow that, but I just think it's been a great debate. And one thing I will echo is that people need to do a lot more research.
Amen.
Yeah.
Look at history. Don't be, like you say, take the sound bites. Look at history, research, know geography. I think that's what's crucial. You know,
definitely.
know the planet, know where people are.
And connect with
Yeah,
it.
man.
Connect
Yeah,
with
when
it.
you see those movies set in the desert, more likely it's Africa.
Yeah. History is so crucial for people to.
Well, you know, I'm just gonna drop this last bit of science. You know, like if we do something again. You know, even though James hasn't been to Egypt and everything like that, you know, I've been to Luxor a couple of times, and I would love to have a conversation about when Napoleon got trapped there for 10 years and totally changed and refigured all the artwork and statuaries, and which is why I saw white females and why white females were depicted in films, because, you know, hey, that's what they did. They drew their own pictures on the walls. That's a fact. I mean, it wasn't just a battle of Waterloo and everything like that. Right. So I'm trying to tell you. Anyway, I'm Chase Johnson Lynch. I'd like to thank once again my late brother Jay Blaze for being on the decks and everything. And, you know, and please keep following. Thank you.
Pleasure.